chapter.
Seventh chapter, I'm sorry. The seventh chapter. And starting with the 17th verse.
Is that it?
Yes. And we just heard about the four kinds of people who approach Krishna. People who are distressed, or in need of money, or inquisitive, or in search of the truth. And now we're going to hear what Krishna says about those people. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 7, text 17. Tesham jnani nitya yukta ekabhaktir vishishyate priyo hi jnanino tyartam ahangsa cha mama priya. Of these, those four people we talked about just now, the one who was in full knowledge and who was always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I am very dear to him, and he is dear to me. Purport. Free from all contaminations of material desires, the distressed, the inquisitive, the penniless, and the seeker after supreme knowledge can all become pure devotees. But out of them, he who is in knowledge of the absolute truth and free from all material desires becomes a really pure devotee of the Lord. And of the four orders, the devotee who is in full knowledge and is at the same time engaged in devotional service is, the Lord says, the best. By searching after knowledge, one realizes that his self is different from his material body. And when further advanced, he comes to the knowledge of the impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. When one is fully purified, he realizes that his constitutional position is to be the eternal servant of God. Hare Krishna. Guru Bhakti, you please take this seat. You're on your feet all day and you need to take a break. I'll back up a couple of sentences. And of the four orders, the devotee who is in full knowledge and is at the same time engaged in devotional service is, the Lord says, the best. By searching after knowledge, one realizes that his self is different from his material body, and when further advanced, he comes to the knowledge of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. When one is fully purified, he realizes that his constitutional position is to be the eternal servant of God. So by association with pure devotees, the inquisitive, the distressed, the seeker after material amelioration, and the man in knowledge all become themselves pure. But in the preparatory stage, the man who is in full knowledge of the Supreme Lord and is at the same time executing devotional service is very dear to the Lord. He who is situated in pure knowledge of the transcendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so protected in devotional service that material contamination cannot touch him. Text 18. Udarat sarva evaite jnani tvatmaiva me matam astitak sahiyuktatma mamevanutamim tutamam gatim. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self, being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. Purport. It is not the devotees who are less complete in knowledge are not dear to the Lord. The Lord says that all are magnanimous, because anyone who comes to the Lord for any purpose is called a Mahatma, or great soul. The devotees who want some benefit out of devotional service are accepted by the Lord because there is an exchange of affection. Out of affection, they ask the Lord for some material benefit, and when they get it, they become so satisfied that they also advance in devotional service. But the devotee in full knowledge is considered to be very dear to the Lord because his only purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord with love and devotion. Such a devotee cannot live a second without contacting or serving the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is very fond of his devotee and cannot be separated from him. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord says, Sadavo hridayam mayam sadhunam hridayam twaham maranyat te nujananti naham te vyok manag api. The devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in the hearts of the devotees. The devotee does not know anything beyond me, and I also cannot forget the devotee. There is a very intimate relationship between me and the pure devotees. Pure devotees in full knowledge are never out of spiritual touch, and therefore they are very much dear to me. Text 19. Bahunam janmanam ante janavam mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Purport. The living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life, and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders unto him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that he is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Personality, Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. This verse is very nicely explained in the 3rd chapter, verses 14 and 15 of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Sahasrashirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishvato Mitam Mrita Vrita Tyat Tishtad Dashanu Gulam Dashan Gulam Purusha Evidam Sarvam Yad Bhutam Cha Yachchapav Yad Bhutam Yachchapavyam Utam Ritat Basij Yeshano Yad Anena Tirohati. Lord Vishnu has thousands of heads, thousands of ears, eyes, and thousands of feet, entirely encompassing the whole universe, he still extends beyond it by 10 fingers' breadth. He is, in fact, this entire universe. He is all that was and all that will be. He is the Lord of immortality and of all that is nourished by food. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it is said, Navai vacho nachakshungshi nashrutani namanas sityakshate prana iti eva chakshate prano yevaitani sarvani bhavanti. In the body of a living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is the life air which is the center of all activities. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is the prime entity in everything. And because Vasudeva is all-pervading, and everything is Vasudeva, the Lord surrenders in full knowledge text 20. Kamaistaistaya vityajnana prapadyantenya devata tam tam niyamamastaya prakritya niyatak swaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Purport. Those who are freed from all material contaminations surrender unto the Supreme Lord and engage in His devotional service. As long as the material contamination is not completely washed off, they are by nature non-devotees. But even those who have material desires and who resort to the Supreme Lord are not so much attracted by external nature. Because of approaching the right goal, they soon become free from all material lust. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all desires, or is full of material desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender to Vasudeva and worship him. As stated in the Bhagavatam, Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udaridihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Following the rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided, because in Vedic literature there are recommendations for worshipping different gods for different purposes. For example, a diseased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Britya. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is master, and all others are his servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives. Text 21. Yo yo yam yang tanum bhakta shadayar chitamichchiti tasya tasya chalam shadam tameva viridham yaham. I am in everyone's heart as a super soul, As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady, so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Purport. God has given independence to everyone. Therefore, if a person desires to have material enjoyment and wants very sincerely to have such facilities from the material demigods, the Supreme Lord, as Supersoul in everyone's heart, understands and gives facilities to such persons. As the Supreme Father of all living entities, he does not interfere with their independence, but gives all facilities so that they can fulfill their material desires. Some may ask why the all-powerful God gives facilities to the living entities for enjoying this material world, and so lets them fall into the trap of the illusory energy. The answer is that if the Supreme Lord as Supersoul does not give such facilities, then there is no meaning to independence. Therefore, he gives everyone full independence, whatever one likes. But his ultimate instruction we find in the Bhagavad-Gita. One should give up all other engagements and fully surrender unto him. That will make a man happy. Both the living entity and the demigods are subordinate to the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the living entity cannot worship the demigod by his own desire, nor can the demigod bestow any benediction without the supreme will. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, persons who are distressed in the material world go to the demigods, as they are advised in the Vedic literature. A person wanting some particular thing may worship such and such a demigod. For example, a diseased person is recommended to worship the sun god. A person wanting education may worship the goddess of learning, Saraswati. And a person wanting a beautiful wife may worship the goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. In this way, there are recommendations in the Shastras, Vedic scriptures, for different modes of worship of different demigods. And because a particular living entity wants to enjoy a particular material facility, the Lord inspires him with a strong desire to achieve that benediction from that particular demigod. And so he successfully receives the benediction. The particular mode or the devotional attitude of the living entity toward a particular type of demigod is also arranged by the Supreme Lord. The demigods cannot infuse the living entities with such an affinity, because he is the Supreme Lord, or the Supersoul, who is present in the hearts of all living entities. Krishna gives impetus to man to worship certain demigods. The demigods are actually different parts of the universal body of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they have no independence. In the Vedic literature, it is stated, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Supersoul is also present within the heart of the demigod. Therefore, he arranges through the demigod to fulfill the desire of the living entity. But both the demigod and the living entity are dependent on the supreme will. They are not independent. Text 22. Sataya Shadaya Yuktas Tasyaradanam ihate Labate Chatatakaman Mayaiva Vihitan Hitan. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Purport. The demigods cannot award benedictions to their devotees without the permission of the Supreme Lord. The living entity may forget that everything is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the living entity may forget that everything is the property of the Supreme Lord, but the demigods do not forget. So the worship of demigods and achievement of desired results are due not to the demigods, but to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by arrangement. The less intelligent living entity does not know this, and therefore he foolishly goes to the demigods for some benefit. But the pure devotee, when in need of something, prays only to the Supreme Lord. Asking for material benefit, however, is not a sign of a pure devotee. A living entity goes to the demigods usually because he is mad to fulfill his lust. This happens when something undue is desired by the living entity, and the Lord himself does not fulfill the desire. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that one who worships the Supreme Lord and at the same time desires material enjoyment is contradictory in his desires. Devotional service to the Supreme Lord and the worship of a demigod cannot be on the same platform, because worship of a demigod is material, and devotional service to the Supreme Lord is completely spiritual. For the living entity who desires to return to Godhead, material desires are impediments. A pure devotee of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay? For the living entity who desires to return to Godhead, material desires are impediments. A pure devotee of the Lord is therefore not awarded the material benefits desired by less intelligent living entities, who therefore prefer to worship demigods of the material world rather than engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Text 23. Antavat tupalam tesham tadbhavat yalpamedasam devan deva jajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. Men of small knowledge worship the demigods, and the fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Purport. Some commentators on the Bhagavad-Gita say that one who worships a demigod can reach the Supreme Lord. But here it is clearly stated that worshippers of demigods go to the different planetary systems where various demigods are situated, just as a worshipper of the sun achieves the sun, or a worshipper of the demigod of the moon achieves the moon. Similarly, if anyone wants to worship a demigod like Indra, he can attain that particular god's planet. It is not that everyone, regardless of whatever demigod is worshipped, will reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is denied here, for it is clearly stated that the worshippers of demigods go to different planets in the material world, but the devotee of the Supreme Lord goes directly to the Supreme Planet of the Personality of Godhead. Here the point may be raised that if the demigods are different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, then the same end should be achieved by worshipping them. However, worshippers of the demigods are less intelligent because they don't know to what part of the body food must be supplied. Some of them are so foolish that they claim that there are many parts and many ways to supply food. This isn't very sanguine. Can anyone supply food to the body through the ears or eyes? They do not know that these demigods are different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord, and in their ignorance they believe that each and every demigod is a separate god and a competitor of the Supreme Lord. Not only are demigods parts of the Supreme Lord, but ordinary living entities are also. In the Srimad Bhagavatam it is stated that the Brahmanas are the head of the Supreme Lord, the Kshatriyas are his arms, the Vaishyas are his waist, the Shudras are his legs, and all serve different functions. Regardless of the situation, if one knows that both the demigods and he himself are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, his knowledge is perfect. But if he does not understand this, he achieves different planets where the demigods reside. This is not the same destination the devotee reaches. The results achieved by the demigods' benedictions are perishable, because within this material world, the planets, the demigods, and their worshippers are all perishable. Therefore, it is clearly stated in this verse that all results achieved by worshipping demigods are perishable, and therefore such worship is performed by the less intelligent living entity. Because the pure devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness in devotional service of the Supreme Lord achieves eternal blissful existence that is full of knowledge. His achievements and those of the common worshipper of the demigods are different. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. His favor is unlimited. His mercy is unlimited. Therefore, the mercy of the Supreme Lord upon his pure devotees is unlimited. Text 24. Avyaktam yaktimapanam manyante mamabuddhayaha param bhavam ajananto mamamyayam anutamam. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. Purport. Those who are worshippers of demigods have been described as less intelligent persons, and here the impersonalists are similarly described. Lord Krishna in his personal form is here speaking before Arjuna, and still, due to ignorance, impersonalists argue that the Supreme Lord ultimately has no form. Yamunacharya, a great devotee of the Lord in the disciplic succession of Ramanujacharya, has written a very appropriate verse in this connection. He says, Tvam Srila Rupa Charitai Parama Prakrishtai Satvena Sat Vikataya Pralabais Sashastrahai Prakyat Daiva Paramartha Vidam Mataischa Naivasura Prakritayak Prabhavanti Bodham. My dear Lord, devotees like Vyasadeva and Narada know you to be the the personality of Godhead. By understanding different Vedic literatures, one can come to know your characteristics, your form, and your activities, and one can thus understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, the demons, the non-devotees, cannot understand you. They are unable to understand you. They are unable to understand you. However expert such non-devotees may be in discussing Vedanta and the Upanishads and other Vedic literatures, it is not possible for them to understand the personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the personality of Godhead cannot be understood simply by study of the Vedanta literature. Only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord can the personality of the Supreme be known. Therefore, in this verse, it is clearly stated that not only are the worshippers of the demigods less intelligent, but those non-devotees who are engaged in Vedanta and speculation on Vedic literature without any tinge of true Krishna consciousness are also less intelligent. And for them, it is not possible to understand God's personal nature. Persons who are under the impression that the Absolute Truth is impersonal are described as abuddhiyaha, which means those who do not know the ultimate feature of the Absolute Truth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that supreme realization begins from the impersonal Brahman and then rises to the localized Supersoul, but the ultimate word in the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead. Modern impersonalists are still less intelligent, for they do not even follow their great predecessor, Shankaracharya, who has specifically stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonalists, therefore, not knowing the Supreme Truth, think Krishna to be only the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, or a prince, or a powerful living entity. This is also condemned in the Bhagavad-Gita. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tonamashritam. Only the fools regard me as an ordinary person. The fact is that no one can understand Krishna without rendering devotional service and without developing Krishna consciousness. The Bhagavatam confirms this. Atapi te devapadam bhujanadvaya prasada lesha nugrihita eva hi janati tatvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko pichadam bichinban. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace, my Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. One cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or his form, quality, or name, simply by mental speculation or by discussing Vedic literature. One must understand him by devotional service. When one is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, beginning by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then only can one understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Non-devotee impersonalists think that Krishna has a body made of this material nature, and that all his activities, his form and everything are Maya. These impersonalists are known as Mayavadis. They do not know the ultimate truth. The 20th verse clearly states, Kamais taista rityajnana prabhajante yadevataha. Those who are blinded by lusty desires surrender under the different demigods. It is accepted that besides the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are demigods who have their different planets, and the Lord also has a planet. As stated in the 23rd verse, Devan, Deva Jajo Yanti, Madbhakta Yanti Mamapi. The worshippers of the demigods go to the different planets of the demigods, and those who are devotees of Lord Krishna go to the Krishna Loka planet. Although this is clearly stated, the foolish impersonalists still maintain that the Lord is formless and that these forms are impositions. From the study of the Gita, does it appear that the demigods and their abodes are impersonal? Clearly, neither the demigods nor Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are impersonal. They are all persons. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has his own planet, and the demigods have theirs. Therefore, the monistic contention that ultimate truth is formless and that form is imposed does not hold true. It is clearly stated here that it is not imposed. From the Bhagavad-Gita we can clearly understand that the forms of the demigods and the form of the Supreme Lord are simultaneously existing, and that Lord Krishna is Satchidananda, eternal blissful knowledge. The Vedic literature confirms that the Supreme Absolute Truth is knowledge and blissful pleasure. Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. And that he is the reservoir of unlimited auspicious qualities. Ananta Kalyana Gunatmako Sao. And in the Gita, the Lord says that although he is Aja, unborn, he still appears. These are the facts that we should understand from the Bhagavad-Gita. We cannot understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be impersonal. The imposition theory of the impersonalist monist is false as far as the statements of the Bhagavad-Gita are concerned. It is clear herein that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Lord Krishna, has both form and personality. Text 25. Naham prakashak sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha mudhoyam nabijanati lokomam ajamavyayam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Purport. It may be argued that since Krishna was visible to everyone when he was present on this earth, how can it be said that he is not manifest to everyone? But actually, he was not manifest to everyone. When Krishna was present, there were only a few people who could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to the Supreme God. In the assembly of Kurus, when Shishupal spoke against Krishna's being elected president of the assembly, Bhishma supported him and proclaimed him to be the Supreme God. Similarly, the Pandavas and a few others knew that he was the Supreme, but not everyone. He was not revealed to the non-devotees and the common man. Therefore, in the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says that but for his pure devotees, all men consider him to be like themselves. He was manifest only to his devotees as the reservoir of all pleasure, but to others, to unintelligent non-devotees, he was covered by his internal potency. In the prayers of Kunti in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the Lord is covered by the curtain of Yogamaya, and thus ordinary people cannot understand him. This Yogamaya curtain is also confirmed in the Ishopanishad, in which the devotee prays, Hiran Mayena Patrena Satyasyapi Hitam Mukham Tattvam Pushan Apavrinu Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. O my Lord, you are the maintainer of the entire universe, and devotional service to you is the highest religious principle. Therefore I pray that you will also maintain me. Your transcendental form is covered by the Yogamaya. The Brahmajyoti is the covering of the internal potency. May you kindly remove this glowing effulgence that impedes my seeing your Satchidananda Vigraha, your eternal form of bliss and knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his transcendental form of bliss and knowledge, is covered by the internal potency of the Brahmajyoti, and the less intelligent impersonalists cannot see the Supreme on this account. Also, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this prayer by Brahma. O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Super Soul, O Master of all mystery, who can calculate your potency and pastimes in this world? You are always expanding your internal potency, and therefore no one can understand you. Learned scientists and learned scholars can examine the atomic constitution of the material world, or even the planets, but still they are unable to calculate your energy and potency, although you are present before them. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is not only unborn, but also avyaya, inexhaustible. His eternal form is bliss and knowledge, and his energies are all inexhaustible. Text 26. Vidaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishani chabhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. O Arjun, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. Purport. Here the question of personality and impersonality is clearly stated. If Krishna, the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were Maya, material, as the impersonalists consider him to be, then like the living entity, he would change his body and forget everything about his past life. Anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict the outcome of his present life. Therefore, he cannot know what is happening in past, present, and future. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, he cannot know past, present, and future. Unlike the ordinary human being, Lord Krishna clearly states that he completely knows what happened in the past, what is happening in the present and what will happen in the future. In the 4th chapter we have seen that Lord Krishna remembers instructing Vibhiswan, the sun god, millions of years ago. Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living being's heart as the Supersoul. But despite his presence in every living entity as Supersoul, and his presence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person. Certainly, the transcendental body of Sri Krishna is not perishable. He is just like the sun, and Maya is just like a cloud. In the material world, we can see that there is the sun, and that there are clouds and different stars and planets. The clouds may cover all these in the sky temporarily, but this covering is only apparent to our limited vision. The sun, moon, and stars are not actually covered. Similarly, Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord. By his internal potency, he is not manifest to the less intelligent class of men. As it is stated in the 3rd verse of this chapter, out of millions and millions of men, some try to become perfect in this human form of life, and out of thousands and thousands of such perfected men, hardly one can understand what Lord Krishna is. Even if one is perfected by realization of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, he cannot possibly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, without being in Krishna consciousness. Text 27. Ichcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohina bharata sarva bhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. O scion of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hate. Purport. The real constitutional position of the living entity is that of subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by the illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees, who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate, can understand that Lord Sri Krishna appears by his internal potencies. But those who are deluded by duality and nations think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energies. This is their misfortune. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, and so on, thinking, this is my wife and this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 28. Yesham twantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandvo mohanir mukta bhajante mam dridavrataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, are freed from the dualities of delusion, and they engage themselves in my service with determination. Purport. Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously, and who have conquered sinful reactions can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then gradually they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness, in the association of pure devotees. For in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahat Sevam Dvaram Ahur Vimukte. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence. Tamodvaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's law. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality or to be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination. Text 29. Jada marana mokshaya mam ashritya yatanti ye te brahma tad vidu kritsnam adhyatmam karmachakilam. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Purport. Birth, death, old age, and diseases affect this material body, but not the spiritual body. There is no birth, you'll be out of work in the spiritual world. You'll have to find a new gig. You'll have to find a new gig there, We're talking about Dr. Bhakti, Guru Bhakti, the one who just saved my life. But you won't have to do that there. We'll have to play together, and we don't have to worry about this disease, old age. Hare Krishna. Birth, death, old age, and diseases affect this material body, but not the spiritual body. There is no birth, death, old age, and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains a spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages in eternal devotional service. Excuse me. There is no birth, death, old age, and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains a spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages in eternal devotional service, is really liberated. Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit. It is said that one should understand that he is Brahman, spirit soul. This Brahman conception of life is also in devotional service, as described in this verse. The pure devotees are transcendentally situated on the Brahman platform, and they know everything about transcendental activities. 4 kinds of impure devotees are who engage themselves in transcendental service of the Lord, achieve their respective goals. And by the grace of the Supreme Lord, when they are fully Krishna conscious, they actually enjoy spiritual association with the Supreme Lord. But those who are worshippers of demigods never reach the Supreme Lord in his supreme planet. Even the less intelligent Brahman realized persons cannot reach the supreme planet of Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan. Only persons who perform activities in Krishna consciousness, Mam Ashritya, are actually entitled to be called Brahman, because they are actually endeavoring to reach the Krishna planet. Such persons have no misgivings about Krishna, and thus they are factually Brahman. Those who are engaged in worshipping the form of Archa of the Lord, or who are engaged in meditation on the Lord, simply for liberation from material bondage, also know, by the grace of the Lord, the purports of Brahman, Adibhuta, and so on, as explained by the Lord in the next chapter. Text 30. Saribhutadidaivam mam sarijagyam cha ye viduhu prayanakale pichimam te vidur yukta chetasaha. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation, of the demigods, and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Purport. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and at the time of death, such a Krishna conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan. This 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord. And by His grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness, and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dridha Vrata, and that is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita is the substance of that conviction. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita in the matter of knowledge of the Absolute. Hare Krishna. So now you can understand why we were talking 2 days ago about how the first 6 chapters are not as confidential as this, because it doesn't talk directly about Krishna as much and give clear conceptions of how to think of him and how to think and what to do. So in direct devotional service. So the 7th to the 12th chapters are internal, they're very confidential. And the beginning 6 chapters and the last 6 chapters, they act as protective, like covers for that. They're all important, all the chapters are important, but these middle 6 chapters are most important. So now we have our reflection time. Any reflections, any comments, any questions, any realizations, any thing? Such good hearers there are here. Don't tell me. Sarva.
It said, there's one verse, Maharaj, that says,
Wait. You who?
says that Krishna knows.
Wait till
One verse in this,
want to hear this.
yes, one verse in the chapter said that Krishna knows past lives and all that, but that Arjuna didn't. And it says that as long as one has a material body, one can't have that kind of remembrance. Is it possible for someone who's a living entity to spiritualize his body and have that kind of understanding? Is it only God that has that ability?
It is generally not possible, but it is rarely possible under extremely special circumstances. Narada Muni, when Narada Muni was born in a nude creation, then he appeared as Narada Muni, and before, in the last creation, he was a young boy, and he was innocent and especially well behaved and gentle by his previous activities in previous lifetimes. And then he happened to, his mother was maidservant, and she was serving these great saintly persons who came to their place, their house, and stayed with them during the rainy season. Because in the rainy season in India, it's not so easy to travel. So in the old days, people used to stay at home or stay inside mainly, not travel so much at least, stay in the village. And so by just being around them and helping mother to serve them, because he was very pure-hearted and innocent, by hearing, he got a taste. And then he asked to taste the remnants of their food, and that accelerated his progress. And then he finally became very highly qualified. And then one day his mother, unfortunately, when he was just, 5 or 6 or 7 years old, she was bitten by a snake, and she left her body. And he was there, alone and unprotected. And because of the association of the sadhus that he had heard from and gotten a taste, he was very intelligent, and he went into the forest and he performed severe austerities, and he got to see Krishna face to face for a moment, but then he lost that vision. And then after that, he heard Krishna speak to him, and he had to do some austerities. And then as soon as he left his body, his body changed. And when he came back in the next creation, he was Narada Muni, and he had a spiritual body. He was one of the mind-born sons of Lord Brahma, the only one of them that's in the beginning of the creation, the only one of them who was qualified to understand pure devotional service, bhakti. The others of the mind-born sons of Brahma were assigned to different duties, different missions to help populate the universe and disseminate the different kinds of knowledge through the universe, through their disciples and their disciples and their disciples. But Narada Muni he came out a pure devotee. And because he had a spiritual body, he could know past, present, and future. Therefore, you always see and hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in other Puranas, Narada Muni always shows up just at the right time to tell everybody what's going on. Yeah, so therefore sometimes Narada Muni is called Bhagavan, but it means he's a great person, but he's not Krishna. So a person who is empowered by Krishna can know those things. And sometimes even, in very special circumstances, even an ordinary person will by some fluke, what's an example? Sometimes there's some kind of shock or some type of event in one's life, that causes one to be able to use resources of the brain and to be able to understand what they were in the past life. There are people now who say they can regress you to see what you were in previous lifetimes. That's a little dodgy. You can't always count on those persons and their process. But yes, it is possible for someone to purify their... But generally speaking, as long as we're in a material body, as long as we are in a material body, then we don't remember. The reason is because if we could remember all the things we did, we would be very confused or horrified, and we wouldn't be able to function properly. I mean, there are cases now recorded in medical journals of little kids who remember, something about their previous life, and they remember the town, and there have even been research projects by, bona fide and serious scholars that have found some of those stories to be true, and there's no other way that they could have known those things unless they had some past life experience. So yes, but not to understand all of one's previous lifetimes. That's Krishna's position. Even if you can remember something, Krishna can remember everything. And not only that, he can remember everyone's past activities, everyone's present activities, and everyone's future activities. So then the doubt comes out sometimes in faithless persons that, oh, well, if that's true, then why Krishna allows me to do something that's going to cause me to have some trouble in the future? What kind of God is he? He's supposed to love me, but he lets me do those kinds of things. Well, talk to any parent trying to take care of their children. They don't always say what you do, what you tell them to do. They sometimes do what they want to do anyway. That means that without independence, then love could not exist. You cannot force anyone to love you. Love is voluntary. So voluntary means independence. You have a choice to choose to love or not. So that's our position in this material world, as was very nicely described by Krishna in this chapter, that until one actually surrenders to Krishna, he can't understand. And until we become purified by pious activities and by devotional service, and our previous actions and reactions are finished, then we can understand Krishna fully and make it our only ambition in life to go to the spiritual world, to Krishna's planet, and to play with him and serve him, love him. The kinds of relationships that we have here, the spiritual world is the same as the material world in that sense, in the sense that there are relationships, there are families, there everything is there. Except there, Krishna is in the center. And here, each one of us is trying to be at the center. That's the difference. So if everyone's trying to be the center, obviously there's going to be clashes because no two persons are the same. No two persons are the same here because no two persons are the same there in the original world. in the spiritual world. So therefore Arjuna, he couldn't remember. And Krishna pointed out to him, oh, you were there also when I spoke the Bhagavad-Gita many millions of years ago, but you can't remember, but I can remember. The reason is because I don't change my body, but the living entity, when it comes to this material world, changes its body. By the change of body, we forget. It's the natural order of things in this world. When we change our body, we forget. So that we can, that's Krishna's mercy, so that we can function in this material world, in our particular body, in our particular situation that we're in.
So
I'll repeat it. So,
I've noticed that I can focus better.
I notice that I can focus better
when I hear a speaker. And
when I hear a speaker.
It's the first time I'm introduced to this.
This is the first time that you've been introduced to this process.
Of like reading aloud and hearing.
Yes.
And I've noticed that my mind wanders more than, like, for example, in this 10 minutes when I was able to focus more. So is it just a matter of practice, or is it like, because maybe I'm not used to this style?
So what you're saying is it's harder for your mind to stay focused when you're hearing somebody else read in a room full of people than...
And just everything, like the way we were doing, my mind wanders more when compared to, like, listening to a discourse or like somebody speak with...
Oh, what you're saying is when you're doing this, your mind is focused more.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I got it. I thought you were saying the opposite. I was going to wonder. Yes, well, the mind is chanchal. Chanchala, mana Krishna, chanchalam, manasa Krishna. The mind is fickle. That's the nature of the mind. Everyone's mind is like that. So, therefore, Krishna says, yato nischalati manas chanchalamastinam. You have to grab it and bring it back under the control of the self. And Bhaktisiddhanta, he was a real special Singha guru, lion-like guru. His instructions were very powerful and very blunt and very strong sometimes. He said, if you want to control your mind, then before you go to bed, you beat it with shoes. Metaphorically, of course. You don't get a shoe out. But, and then when you get up, you beat it with a broomstick. That may seem cruel, but we need to control the mind. We can't be peaceful without a controlled mind. So, just as when you're hearing, especially if you're hearing somebody read the Gita who loves the Gita, and it is also a fact that practice makes perfect, both from the point of view of the hearer and the speaker, then when that combination is there, then the picture becomes clear. Just like when you have some radio or television or some internet connection that confirmed that one of the sides isn't working properly, then it doesn't make the connection. The picture isn't clear, the sound isn't clear. So my proposal and my conviction is that because I've made a vow every day to read out loud to myself, even if you can't be in this atmosphere, if you learn the art of reading, or not learn the art, but everybody knows how to read and everybody knows how to listen. But when you listen to yourself, read the words of a liberated soul, and that's what we're doing tonight and these nights. Prabhupada's a liberated soul. He said in himself in a letter to, I don't remember who he was writing to, but he said, this is my kirtan. When a pure devotee does kirtan, meaning explains Krishna consciousness, then the sound vibration is very powerful. And then he said, then it's he did this act literally. He had so much work to do, so he would record it, and then they would transcribe it and then edit and publish it. So he said, this is kirtan. This is his kirtan, the most powerful kirtan that you can listen to. So if you vibrate that same transcendental sound with your own tongue and vocal cords, and it goes into your own ear, if you read strongly, not just, I think, but if you read powerfully like this, as if you're reading to a group of people, then it will catch your mind. The sound catches your mind, just like when we're talking right now. If you're talking to someone that you love or that you care for or you respect, then your mind automatically becomes controlled. Otherwise, every time he says something, you'll say, huh? Huh? If somebody's always saying, huh? Either needs a hearing aid or his mind's going somewhere else. Okay? So the sound has to go into the ear, through the mind, through the intelligence, to the soul. When the sound goes there, then we wake up. If it doesn't go there, then we don't wake up. That's why we have to purify our minds, purify our bodies, our senses, our subtle senses, our intelligence, by taking the instructions of Krishna and the spiritual master and carrying them out. Just like any other discipline. If you want to learn how to play the piano, to be a concert pianist, you have to work very hard, and you have to listen to the teacher, and you have to imitate the movements and learn the chords and everything. Very difficult. So what to speak if you want to become so perfect that you can leave your body at the end of your life and go back to the spiritual world? That's the topmost goal of life. That is the goal of life. So you can't expect it to be easy. You have to commit. That's why the word is used in this verse, Drida Vrataha. Vrata means vow, and Drida means strong vow, determined vow. So you make a vow to do this every day. Even if I'm not trying to say that you should make a vow that's impossible for you to do. That will just make you discouraged, and who knows. But if you make a vow that you can do, the amount, the number of pages, or the amount, or the verses, however you want to, or the time even, just agree to do this for 5 minutes, or half an hour, or an hour, or 2 hours, whatever it is that you have and can do. But make a vow, and don't make a vow that you can't do with all your other duties and everything. Make a vow that you can do, and then do it. And Krishna will help you from within the heart. This is what this chapter was about. Krishna will reciprocate with you, and he wants to be with us. He wants to be with us more than we want to be with him. We've forgotten. He hasn't forgotten. He's so friendly that he travels with us within our hearts for all the time we're in the material world. What kind of friend does that? Even when we get ourselves into strange situations and strange bodies, he's there. Arranging our lives and arranging situations in such a way that we can fulfill our desires that we had in our previous lives. Yes, sir.
In this chapter, Krishna says, Naham prakasa sarvasya yogamaya samarvitaha. So, my understanding was Yogamaya was the internal energy of the Lord, and the Mahamaya is what covers it up. So,
sometimes Yogamaya is called Mahamaya, and Mahamaya is called Yogamaya. Well, Mahamaya is an expansion of Yogamaya. Therefore, the two can be used. In this material world, sometimes Yogamaya is used, but Mahamaya is never used to speak about the spiritual world. It's used particularly in this verse because Arjuna is actually an eternal associate of Krishna. So it's Yogamaya in the sense that, in Arjuna's case, It's Yogamaya because Krishna wanted to speak the Gita again and insert it into the material world because it had been lost. And so Arjuna was put into this state of apparent confusion just so Krishna could do that. That was Yogamaya. But it's also talking about anyone who doesn't understand. And that's actually Mahamaya, but the word Yogamaya is used because Mahamaya is an expansion of Yogamaya. Yes?
My husband Charles and I were invited to come tonight. And we are Christians who are interested in interfaith dialogue. And this has been a beautiful experience. And the readings were beautiful. And I just want to say thank you. But I have a question too that I've never really understood. Somebody told me that the early Christians used to believe in reincarnation, and that some powerful queen in England or somebody said, no, don't let them do that because then they will not be as good in their lifetime. They'll think they have another chance. And I'm pretty sure I believe in it, but I've never really found the answer to that question. Did the early Christians believe in that, and what happened?
Yes. The early Christians did believe in that. Some Christians still do.
Yeah.
And you're an example.
And what?
You're an example because you're pure-hearted and you're innocent and you're very sincere. And therefore anyone who has those qualities, it will not make sense that you only get one chance and then you'll be thrown into a lake of fire. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute with a sincere heart. Therefore it's very hard to find a real Christian these days. But the early Christians, there were books of the Bible that described reincarnation more explicitly. And those books are still in the catacombs but it wasn't in England, it was earlier. And the history, the general history, I'm not a historian, so I don't know all the details, but the general history that Prabhupada explained to us is that in the Roman Empire, in the beginning, the very beginning, the Christians were persecuted, because they considered Jesus a blasphemer, because he was speaking about one God, and they were worshipping demigods, and that's what this chapter was about. They were less intelligent. Rit jnana, their intelligence was stilted. It was lusty, and therefore he was a threat, big threat, because he was empowered by God. He was the Son of God, and he was empowered therefore by God. In the Sanskrit language, there's a particular term to describe that level of empowerment of a jiva soul. It's called Shakti Avesh. Shakti means energy, Avesh means empowered. So when a person is especially empowered by God to do something that only God could do, but still doesn't manifest all the power of God, but just the power of God to do something that no one else could do. Srila Prabhupada, our founder and Acharya, teacher by example, he was Shaktivesh avatar, because he brought Krishna consciousness all around the world, and no one else could do that before. So there's only one God, and they couldn't take it out completely of the Bible. So there's the story of John the Baptist, and he preached that he came to in another life. What was his? What was he? Who was he in another life? His another life was. Huh? Elijah. Yeah. So he described this as, passing on knowledge from one body to another. He would in another body, and he was fulfilling the prophecy of the other body. So it's there in the Bible, but it requires, it's like a gold mine, there's a mine and all the nuggets of gold are in the rock and the stone, and you have to mine it. And only persons who can recognize gold can know what gold is. So there were things that were taken out of the Bible by kings. Especially there was that Constantine in there's a name for the Council of Nicaea, yeah. Council of Nicaea. So there Constantine, because he wanted to, the Christians, they were persecuted at first, but because they were very honest and sincere, they began to get the faith of the administrators of the Roman Empire. And so they put them in positions of management in different places. And that way it spread. And so they decided to keep the, to create they called it the King James Version of the Bible. That was the original. And they took certain books out of the Bible that were taught before, and then aligned it up in such a way as, that the Christians would get more facility and encouraged. And
so it was at the Council of Nicaea that they did that, and
yes.
that it was taken out.
Yes.
Thank you.
There's so much confusion about these things, and God is very merciful, the most merciful, and sometimes he sends his son. He doesn't have only one son. That's sometimes what Christians think, that if I can have more than one son, why can't God? And that means I'm more powerful than God? No. He can have unlimited sons. We're all actually sons of God, all living beings. But we're in different bodies, and therefore we are capable of hearing less or more depending on our qualifications. So in a extended sense, cultures, the general people had more or less in different cultures capacity to hear. And so God comes and sends his representatives, his son or his spiritual masters. He was a spiritual master. And the idea that he was God, it means that he was as good as God, because he represented God, and he spoke only what God speaks. That's what a spiritual master is. One who is surrendered to God and agrees to speak only God's thoughts and not his own thoughts for self-aggrandizement. Therefore, that sound vibration it does awaken spiritual realization and awaken the spirit, the soul, the Holy Spirit, as they say. That's interfaith dialogue.
I've searched for that for years.
Hare Krishna. So I'm very happy to hear that you were searching, and I'm very happy to hear that you got the answer.
For years.
Thank you. Anything else? I've got my doctor here, and she's, I mean, anyway, I won't go into the details, but I had to come back early to my room today because I couldn't. Yes, was something else?
Yes, I think there's some gallipoles that sound like something
Wait, leave it here. Robert says that he thinks there's some gallipoles.
found like something like 25% of Americans or more believe in reincarnation, and I believe something like 85% are Christians. It's not taught in school, it's not taught in college or in the churches, but many people have some intuition that it may be what you're saying. So it makes them kind of...
There's intuition, there's also Prabhupada's book distributions. And we have distributed 500 million, 500 million books since Prabhupada came to the West since 1966. That's a lot of books.
Could you say that again? You've distributed how many?
500 million. I mean, compared to what the Christian Bible has had, it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But because the sound that emanates from these books is very powerful, particularly powerful, because it's not, we have the direct, that's why I chant the Sanskrit. Whenever I read, I chant the Sanskrit. Not every time, but especially the Gita. Because it's a powerful sound, because it's the actual words of God. It's the sound that came out of Krishna's mouth when he spoke the Bhagavad-Gita 5,000 years ago to Arjuna in the Battle of Kurukshetra. So, but the Bible was pure and powerful, obviously, but it was put together and composed and compiled many years after Jesus was there. More, 300. Well, by the time everything was put together. By the time it all got to put together and became the Bible. There were books that were written by different devotees, but when they put it all together into the gospel, as they say, the canon, of the Catholic Church, that was the beginning. Then, that was a long time after Jesus spoke, and there are also all sorts of commentaries, and there are commentaries of the Gita also. But the difference is that we have the original text, the original sound that came from Krishna's mouth. That's why it's very powerful, and it can give experience. And I don't know if that's the fact that, all the people who have an intuition like you, that it must not be that there's only one life and one chance, and if you don't take it, then you're finished for eternity. That doesn't make sense doesn't make sense. Okay, I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. She's going to wave her wand, and I'm going to turn into a pumpkin in a few minutes, so if I don't stop. So thank you so much. Especially thank you to our new guests, Charles and good wife. And please come back, associate with the devotees, and develop your spiritual life. We don't say you have to become, Hindu instead of Christian, or, Muslim instead of Hindu, or whatever. This is not a sectarian movement. You can see all the variety of people that come here. It's quite universal. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone. Srila Prabhupada. It's an auspicious day for you to have come on the appearance day of our spiritual master. And thank you.